everyone. Greetings. Victory Monday here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He is Todd Erzin. He is Aaron McIntyre. They are in victorious Iowa. I am in where they love the smell of Seltzer in the morning. That poll was something, huh? That was fun while it lasted. I'm here in victorious Texas. You are, no matter where you live, you are in victorious America. And we are brought to you by our friends over at Farmer Bills. We all know how important lean supply chains are, and increasingly we are seeing that with our beef industry. That's why I want to tell you about a new America First beef company that just launched from South Dakota. Their name is Farmer Bills, and what they're selling isn't just beef, it's beef biltong. It's a cured meat snack without the sugar, the soy, the nitrates, and fillers. It's an America First company with a fully American supply chain. Everything sourced right there in the grasslands of South Dakota, supporting American ranchers. And if you want to try their great flavors, I would recommend the spicy chili beef. That's my favorite. You can get it right now. A spicy chili bison, original beef, spicy chili beef. Get the entire bestseller bundle, all 4 flavors. Right now, if you use code Steve, 10% off your order. Get the bestseller bundle. It ships for free. The bestseller bundle ships for free at farmerbillsprovisions.com. farmerbillsprovisions.com. Use the code Steve for 10% off your order at farmerbillsprovisions.com. I'm going to warn you guys, I am going on 4.5 hours of sleep. So it's either going to be loopy, great, yes, no, maybe so, dyslexic. We shall see. But we are going to spend the bulk of the show today analyzing this election. Next hour, we are going to play buy, sell, or hold with your election submissions. And we'll get through as many of those as we can. And then we'll do the rest for subscribers today in the overtime. We are going to hear from our colleague Daniel Horowitz, our good friend. Now, he is hopping on a plane as we speak to head back to Maryland. So I was able to grab him in the dark recesses of one of the offices here in the building because we had to get Daniel on today. We could not go this week after the results last night without talking to our very own Daniel Horowitz. So he will be with us via crudely taped segment coming up here in about 90 minutes. I'm gonna guess at least a portion of you, given the numbers we did last night just on Twitter alone, where we had well over 1 million. So I'm gonna guess a significant amount of you heard a lot from me over the course of 8 hours straight last night. From 5 p.m. Central to 1 a.m. Central, 8 consecutive hours we went last night until former and now President-elect Trump got up to give his victory speech. And I have plenty more to say. But I want to start by actually deferring back to my partners, actually my co-host, never partners, Hat Tip Lindsey Graham, back there in Des Moines. And before we dig into some of the details of what transpired last night and why and what it means, Todd and Aaron, I want to give each of you guys just a minute or two, with kind of your big picture thoughts as you watched the returns last night, what it was like watching it, from home. And I guarantee you guys got to see more of the left-wing media meltdown than I did because I was too busy doing my gig. So the floor, to start things off, the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, it definitely had from the get-go a different feel. And this was the first moment where I thought, hey, something here is different. Miami freaking Dade County, Trump won by double digits? Are you kidding me? And then Osceola County, Florida, I guess has a really high Puerto Rican population. That was the moment where I knew when it comes to the mainstream media, you have no power here. That's the first moment I thought maybe something is different. Decision Desk, that's one of the pollsters online, or not pollster, but one of the forecasters online. They had to rescind, I believe, a call of Virginia, and Virginia wasn't called for a number of hours. That was also a good sign. So watching as we were at home, but then we got into, it was about 10 Central, 11 p.m. Eastern time. There was a bit of a lull. And boy, howdy, that was about the time 4 years ago there was a little bit of a lull in results and getting called. And boy, howdy, that lull 4 years ago never ended. But it obviously ended last night. I thought the mainstream media, there was one of three reasons why they didn't call a place like Georgia until very late, when they probably could have called it 3 hours at least before they did. One, they were trying to steal it again. Two, it's just nobody wants to be first. Or three, shrug. I don't know why you wouldn't call Georgia. I just think probably the most likely thing was they didn't want their base to shoot the messenger, and so they delayed. But eventually Fox had the stones to call Pennsylvania. So my mantra going into this election, as you well know, is 2022 happened. And I can't remember if I said this on air or not, but I'll say it now. My main motivation for making that my mantra going into this election is because I wanted to win this. When I saw Donald Trump take the bullet, and when I realized we're running out of time here, and that was crystallized in my mind. I knew that in the back of my head, but I needed the reminder that we really are short on time in this country. I wanted to win that election. I always wanted the left to lose, but now I wanted to affirmatively win. I didn't want anybody within the sound of my voice, no matter how large the platform I was on or how small I was on, to get complacent on any single level at all. I didn't care how rosy the forecast got. I didn't care how rosy the polls were. I didn't want anyone to become complacent. And that's why my mantra was 2022 happened. Well, now I'm happy to say 2024 happened. 2024 happened. This may be anywhere from an opportunity to regroup to a completely new paradigm shift. I know I'm just, the fog of war is still amidst us. I'm leaning towards the latter. I'm hoping it's the latter, praying it's the latter. I think one of the most optimistic things that I've seen coming out of yesterday, is that Donald Trump still has very poor favorable numbers, but he won the frickin' popular vote. That's telling you people are doing math in their heads and saying, I may not like this guy, but life was a hell of a lot better from 2017 to 2019, 2020, when he was president. That's telling you there's still a little bit of the fire in the belly of America. And we're not just going to go silently into that good night. So that was maybe the most optimistic thing. And just, what can you say? He's a freaking living legend now. He's a living legend. And it's really irrelevant what anybody thinks on a personal level, what anybody thinks on a political level. It's irrelevant now. Because, man, you can dislike him. I have. Although that's changed recently with these long-form politics. You can doubt him. I certainly have. You can despise him. And he has many who despise him. But you're going to have to deal with the fact that he's a legend. You're going to have to deal with that. And you know what? It doesn't care. It's like gravity. Gravity doesn't care what you think about it. They try to kill him. They try to politically assassinate him multiple times. Non-stop media bushwhackings over and over and over and over again. Impeachments, hoaxes that were perpetrated on him. Lawfare perpetrated against him. They tried to bankrupt him. All of those things just unraveled right in front of their sorry faces. What can you say? He's a legend. So that's kind of my overall big picture thoughts coming out of yesterday.
Amen to every word there, brother. Well said. Mr. Erzin.
My favorite scene from last night, and it encapsulates so much, as the pundits on the left were clearly delaying calling things, just doing the humana, waiting for whatever black magic would come along and do a redux of 2020. And there's Goebbels, Jake Tapper, and John King looking at this map. And John King kicks a button, and it's the button of Kamala. Is there a single county that she outperforms Joe Biden 4 years ago? The whole map is black. County-based. Yeah. There is not anything. And they're looking at, and there's a crack in Tapper's voice. He's like, not one? Not anywhere? I mean, just classic. Now, here's the flip side. That level of denial, and it's going on this morning. You see it. Everybody's gonna need a little time. Even the evil left, a little grace to process through this thing. But here's the mistake we can't make: is having that level of denial on the right moving forward. I feel blessed by this outcome because it is undeniably a sign of God's mercy upon us. But that mercy clearly did not come because there was a red wave in any traditional sense that the right has thought about a red wave. We know that with the evangelical vote, and I'm sure Steve's going to get into that. It's not because of that. Yes, the Catholic vote, as Steve has laid out how this usually works, it did swing that way. But folks, I'm not going to this is the Catholic moment. How many, 43, 4, I can't remember exactly, percent still voted for Kamala? My question is, when do the exorcisms start? That's still terrible. The church did not do this. And this is why what Steve's sentiment was one of the last columns he wrote before the election about the church needing to understand this fight and get back into it. And it needs to understand the crosstabs of this election, because even Steve, broadly speaking, in terms of his optimism, how he thought the Rust Belt would swing, he was absolutely right. But there's not a person that's honest about this who's like, oh yeah, I called all these crosstabs and this combining of demographics. I mean, this is a reshaping that we just need to be very humble about and honest about, and that's a good thing, because Steve's told you for well over a decade now about how much of the right needs to be smashed and rebuilt. Well, here's the chance. It's right there, but it's going to require humility and honesty. And there's a lot of people who are going to want to go back to the old tricks. This was not a red, I say this without any ambiguity. This was not a red wave. This was a Trump wave. You can like that. You can hate that for all the reasons Aaron talked about. But you absolutely, if you want to move forward and have a place in it as a person of the Christian right, you absolutely need to understand it. And thank you for the Steve also for opening it up to Aaron and I right out of the gate. I appreciate that, especially since you were the most optimistic and the bullish out of the three of us, and you ultimately ended up being, in terms of the broadest strokes to the election, you ended up being the most right.
Well, you guys, and amen to that as well, Todd, and everything that you said there too. And I think you made a very important distinction. It was not a red wave; it was a Trump wave. He outperformed the Republican Party everywhere in America. And just as a quick aside, by the way, Arizona.
Arrest Katie
Hobbs.
Are you? Arrest Katie Hobbs.
60% reporting here at 12:13 Eastern time. So what is it? I can't with the time change. I don't know. They're an hour or two. But it's well into mid-morning in Arizona at least. And you've only reported 60% of your results. This is one of the wealthiest states we have. I mean, why are you so retarded? Why are you retarded? 60% reporting.
Well, your point about Florida, the polls close, they report immediately. And not only do they report immediately, DeSantis comes out and is the one who, if Florida can do that, it's clearly
he calls it. Yes.
Everybody else not doing it. It's just a choice. They're absolutely effing with you. And the most important election analysis, Steve, that you'll do has nothing to do with the getting whatever you got right about this election beforehand. It has what you said about 2020. What we know now and the graphs and the drop in the 15 million fewer votes. Everybody like you who came out immediately said 2020 was stolen. That's the most right you were about any election. And it's more right today than ever before.
Preach on that. All right. So I've got several things I want us to break down. Before we get there, a word about our friends over at Relief Factor. All right. So our 2024 election takeaway is going to be brought to you by Relief Factor, because I know you got some pain relief last night, but you still may have that chronic pain that you're dealing with because of too much inflammation in your joints. And if that's you, contact our friends at Relief Factor. It's their drug-free supplement created by physicians who can though, prescribed drugs, but they wanted to create something that would go after the inflammation causing your chronic pain rather than just masking the pain. That's something. It's Relief Factor. Now, we're not guaranteeing you anything, but over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor, and 70% of them have stuck around with the product long term because of the results that they saw. So why don't you try the 3-week quick start? Why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain or less? It costs you just $20 to find out when you go to relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. So I think it's very important today, as much as possible. We're going to have all kinds of time to talk about how are they going to try to disrupt this thing over the next 70 some odd days between now and the inaugural, right? We've got plenty of time to get into that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about what the agenda and everything should be, with the exception of one thing. I may have time to get to that today or not, that we do need to address very shortly. If not, we for sure will tomorrow. We have spent, folks, an entire year, one of the maybe the craziest political year after a series of crazy political years just compiling on top of each other. And this might be the craziest political year in American history, or at least since before Todd and I were born. You go back to 1968, MLK killed, RFK killed, the candidacy of the segregationist George Wallace, the escalation of Vietnam, LBJ steps aside. Yeah, on second thought, that year probably even eclipses this year. So we're going back more than a half a century, though, because Todd and I are both in our 50s. So that's a long period of time. This is the craziest political year of this generation. And I think we need, after so much speculation of what were people going to do, and now that they've done it, and now that the verdict, Todd said it's not an election, it's a trial. The verdict has been rendered. And I think we need to just stop for a minute before we start game planning out who's going to have this office and do that job, and what policies can we do and what can we not, and what's this mean for 2028 and J.D. Vance and Sarah Huckabee and Ron DeSantis and Vivek and all that other stuff. Set all of that stuff aside. I think we need to listen to what the American people said to us last night.
Yes.
And I think we need to take that data now and learn it and master it and know it. And then I think we have the conversations that are the follow-up conversations that people want to immediately jump to. Then you have those conversations. But I think the American people get one day on this show to be heard from. So I've got a series of takeaways from last night that I want us to address. And the first one is something that Aaron already alluded to. I think we just need to stop and pause and realize here that we have just witnessed the greatest American political comeback in our history. That this is the greatest American comeback since MacArthur returned to the Philippines. What Donald Trump has done here, from assassin bullets to felony indictments to scamdemics, and that's kind of one of the great ironies of this. I noticed last night, I said this towards the end. A lot of you maybe didn't see it because it was well after midnight. And I said this to our editor, Matthew Peterson, on the air. I'm looking at Trump's coalition here. And essentially, it is the coalition of those of us who came together from various walks of life to oppose COVID-19 and the scamdemic. Basically, that coalition is what won Trump this election. So the issue that destroyed his presidency and destroyed the country, the coalition that came out of that issue is essentially what elected him last night. We've come full circle. It is an incredible comeback story. And I don't know how many men, not just of this era, but even any era, would have the sheer will to stand in front of all of these various obstacles, let alone we all bring our own brokenness to the table. And it's pretty badass. And I just think we should take a step there. And not knowing that Aaron was going to do it himself, I wanted to make sure here at the top that we acknowledge that. All right, next thing I want to acknowledge. Go ahead, Todd. You want to add to that?
I was just going to say it is, Steve and I, we are wired to be relentless. But we've also experienced the cost of being told in ways that we just had to reconcile. You know, I can be relentless all I want. I'm not going to get the votes, or thinking about public office, or people have all their excuses about the messaging. But this is encouraging for all the reasons you just said, because if his relentlessness combined, if that wavelength is at the same wavelength as the relentlessness in any given moment with the people, and you combine it, which is why what you're about to do, Steve, with every other bullet point you mentioned, is so important. It's not just Trump's relentlessness, it's also the wavelength that the people were on, and you got to match those. Mm-hmm. But it's encouraging that it's not just you can't. We've been told you can't do it this way. You got to speak in hushed tones and pleated khakis and all that crap. It clearly doesn't anymore. Amen, amen, I say to you.
I mean, say what you want, say whatever superlative you want, cosmic, whatever you want to call this. But I said off the air, it is uncanny what I perceived with all of the lawfare, especially recently, to be just this perfect plan that whoever, the enemy or our opponents, whatever you want to call them, but I think it came from the pit of hell. All of this lawfare was perfectly designed to really manipulate the processes around here, and it was just going so perfectly. And one by one, that all just fell apart. I'm trying to strike the JD Vance breaking the fourth wall thing. Just really, this just happens in a vacuum. No, these things don't just happen. Something else is going on.
No. Which brings me to number two. I mentioned this, it might have been on the show Monday or yesterday, but this analysis that I gave, that I don't believe that at the end of the story, no, it was on Monday, I said, I don't believe the end of the story is that Donald Trump or Jezebel, after everything Donald Trump has providentially avoided, Jezebel gets up and give a victory speech. I didn't believe it, and I was right about that. And I also said this yesterday, pardon me, my voice is still recovering from 8 consecutive hours last night, that I did not think that we were going to get a split verdict in these decisive states. I thought they were all maybe all but one tilt one way. Pardon me, all but two tilt another, and that is exactly what happened. Each side was messaging an incontrovertible worldview. Irreconcilable. I mean, we're sitting here. I don't know how many of you will watch or what time. I know many of you will watch and listen to this later. I just don't know how many of you are watching it, how much later. By the time you get to it, maybe she's conceded, maybe she's called. But guys, it's been 12 hours almost, and the Democratic candidate has not conceded the race, has not called, the losing candidate's not called their opponent. I mean, we're in a brave new world here, and I just did not see a scenario where it was going to be a split verdict because the visions were so contrasting. And the election map I put forth, I took a lot of heat in 22. I deserved every last ounce of it. The election map I put forth, Michigan's going to be razor close. That's the only one I didn't give Trump. The rest of my map is exactly what is going to happen. My Senate map, everybody said, even friends of mine, there's no way we're getting to 54. Well, now we're looking at 55, and there's a chance that we might even have more. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of a comeback victory lap, too, on my own show for just a minute. We don't have to belabor that point, but I just wanted to make a note of that. So let's go to the next point. We have seen the trend line I talked about all election. What was going to be the turnout of white non-college grads versus white college graduates, because Trump was going to be the first Republican to lose white college graduates. And so what was that trend line going to be? How many of them were going to show? How big was the gap? I thought all along, guys, that this was going to be the decisive metric of this election, and it turned out to be. White non-college graduates ended up outnumbering the white college grads 39-32. And Trump won the white non-college graduates by 32 points. And that's 3 times more than Kamala won the white college graduates by 10. This was the whole election result right here. Yes, there were historic gains made with Hispanic voters. I'm going to get to that here in a few minutes. But they only made up about 8% of the electorate overall. Okay, the whole election. Remember when I laid out the minority data to all you folks? This is why I do it, guys, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I do it, because you're being lied to. What you're being sold about how we win and what needs to be won and who needs to be won, it's all a scam lie. And frankly, a lot of it comes from Fox. It's a lie. It's not true. The elections have always come down to what white people do. Always. There is no demographic, after the Obama years. Well, the demographics are changing. No, not really. Remember, I walked you through all the percentage of votes that have been black since 1980, the percentage of votes that have been Hispanic in the last, remember we walked through all that, folks. And I did that for a reason. Because I want to win. And trust me, I'm the guy that if the other demographics were surging and more important, I'd tell you, I just want to win. It was always going to be white people, because they do most of the voting, because they're most of the people. It's just math. And this is, by the way, a complete inversion of where the Republican Party was the last time it won the popular vote in 2004. A total inversion. George W. Bush would have racked up, maybe not plus 32, but he would have decisively won white college grads, and John Kerry decisively won white non-college grads.
This is so important because there's still people.
The entire political paradigm in America is completely inverted from what we grew up with. And if you're going to operate on the right, you're going to have to come to grips with that.
Yes. And
figure out how to take and how to master that environment, or you're going to have to go start your own movement, or you're just going to have to sit out and continue to be frustrated and make yourself irrelevant. This is the new paradigm moving forward. The Democrats are the party of the suburban college graduates, and the Republicans are the party of the non-college graduates. And this election, once and for all right, cemented that.
Is it one
Period, end of sentence.
Is it one of your bullet points later on? How did men break within that?
Yes, we will get into the gender breakdown as well. Yes. I want to, while we're giving victory cigars out, let me tell you who saved America. Let me show you this. All right. Donald Trump lost every generation. Every generation Donald Trump lost, except one. All right. Gen X literally saved America. Trump lost every single generation except Gen Xers. He lost boomers by one. That was the second best generation he did. So he lost his own generation. He lost boomers by one. He lost millennials by 5. He lost the Zoomers by 13. And he won Gen Xers by 9. And they were 30. And we, Todd, we were 35% of the electorate. We literally saved America.
Well,
Gen X literally saved America.
Now, to be fair, some of the gaps on the younger generations are they're closed, right? I mean, certainly amongst millennials.
In some states, if you go to some states, Trump did good with young voters in Michigan, but collectively, Trump lost in terms of the national popular vote. Trump lost every generation but Gen Xers.
Well, I think our generation happens to just be of the age where it's running the businesses and paying the kind of bills in terms of family, college education, things like that.
And grew up in a country that used to and has seen what a great America looked like and watched it go down the drain. Well, has lived through that decline.
I hope you're right about that one. I'm emphasizing more on a like Scott Walker like spreadsheet, and then he went on and he understood nothing. Steve, I hope you're right, and I'm not going to talk it down, but I'm going to need to see a little more that they really. I'm
going to tell you why I'm right. Look at all the ballot initiatives on crime, election integrity all over the country. We won them all. On all of those
Prop
issues
36,
have we gone insane.
California,
yep,
Prop
we won
30,
all those.
Was it Prop 36 in California?
Agreed. But stopping the bleeding and understanding that's a grown-up thing to do is different than the aspirational kind of proactive thinking that real grown-ups do to lead a country so you don't get to this point. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, but you can't lead a country until you stop the bleeding. I agree with you on that, though. All right, more election analysis here next. Stay tuned. Hey, we want to welcome a brand new partner here on the Steve Deace Show. It's American Financing, because today's economic environment is still really stressful for a lot of us. But with the Fed finally dropping interest rates, there's no better time than now to put you and your family in a better financial position. If you're a homeowner, American Financing is helping thousands of families just like you who have been putting everyday expenses on credit cards get out from underneath that kind of debt by tapping into their home's equity. American Financing is saving their borrowers over $800 a month on average. That's huge. All right, that's like $10,000. It's like a $10,000 raise at work. All right, so it costs absolutely nothing to find out how much you can save. They are closing some in as little as 10 days. And if you start today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment just in time for the holidays. There's no better time than now to turn your situation around. Call today, 888-675-4090. That's 888-675-4090. 888-675-4090. AmericanFinancing.net/Deace.
NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
All right, let's continue on. And our goal here by the time we get done is we want to make you the most informed audience on this election and what the voters had to say that there is in America. That's my goal. I think it is very important before we just all move on to know what the American people said to us last night. So let's continue on. Let's talk about gender gaps. All right. So the national electorate currently projects to be women +6 overall, which is 2 points higher than the previous two Trump elections. Remember, we've not had a majority male electorate since 1980. However, Trump is right now projected to have his best gender gap yet. He was -11 this year. He was -13 in 2016, -15 in 2020. So there's at least some progress there made. When you look at, we at least found there's a couple more points of women that the most important issue in their lives is not, can I just let guys inseminate me? And then let guys who don't care about me inseminate me, and then just kill my child whenever the conception happens. I'm at this point, guys. I'm taking all the optimism I can get. All right, still not great. -11 is still not great. Okay, but it was -15 and -13, and then they even more aggressively messaged that platform in this election cycle than we've ever seen before. So the fact that the gap came down in spite of that, I'm going to take a little bit of solace in that. A little bit.
Yeah, I think I saw this morning the only demographic where Kamala did like really well with, or even improved a little bit over Joe Biden, was white, college-educated women, if that's correct.
Elizabeth Warren.
Basically,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, again, cautiously optimistic, because no matter how you slice it, they basically the only issue that they tried to affirmatively run on was baby killing, and I think there's a meme going around right now. It's pretty flippant, but apparently most women buy eggs and groceries more often than they have abortions, when they kill babies. And so maybe just maybe that's breaking through here a little bit.
I'll just say that you're right, Steve, to say I'll take a little bit, because that's the right amount. More would be an inappropriate understanding of what happened, so I'll give you that.
All right, so Todd, here, let's talk about your tribe here for a second. Let's talk about Catholics. I've been telling you guys all along, since Roe v. Wade, no presidential candidate except George W. Bush in 2000, when he lost him by a sliver to Al Gore, no presidential candidate has lost the Catholic vote and won the election. All right. Right now, we are estimating that Trump, I say white right now because it's possible some of these exits may get reweighted and down the line, and some of these, may fluctuate 2 to 4 points one way or the other. But for now, we are estimating that Trump won the Catholic vote by 15 points. And when I posted this last night, you'll see there, if you're watching at 9:31, I said right there, hours before it was confirmed. I said that's the kind of number right there that would equate to Trump winning the popular vote as well, winning that group by 15 points. And sure enough, he's going to win the popular vote as well, Todd.
Like I said earlier, it's still very problematic how many Catholics voted for Kamala Harris. And I think some of Trump on this, I think, is actually riding on the coattails of the anti-Francis sentiment within the church. Francis has now been Pope for 14 years off the top of my head. Maybe it's not 13. And, there's a fatigue there about that. And they're looking for something that's going in a more clear-headed direction. So I think there's a couple things going on there, but I don't think this is some grand Catholic moment.
All right, Aaron, let's get to evangelicals next. All right. Only 22% right now of the electorate was white evangelical. That's the smallest turnout of evangelicals that Trump has ever had. They were 26% of the overall, so more than 1 out of every 4 voters in 2016. 28% turnout in 2020. That's the all-time high. This matches the lowest evangelical overall turnout of the electorate since Romney 2012. So that's when there was the whole controversy given Romney's, LDS association as well. Now, Trump did get the customary 81% of them that almost every Republican gets, somewhere between 78 and 81. So it's not about the percentage of the people that he got. It's about the percentage of the turnout he received. And so that turnout is pretty anemic given the issues at stake. And it appears, though, when you look at the overall electorate, Trump paid no penalty whatsoever for watering down his pro-life messaging. Even if it did hurt his evangelical turnout somewhat, he didn't suffer from it anywhere at all. So
can I ask
make of that what you will.
Can I ask both of you a clarifying question that may spring? The Trump got fewer votes in 2024 overall than he got in 2020, as now on the famous graph that makes it clear that there was a cheat going on. How much of that do you think has to do with evangelicals staying home? Is it a guess, or do you actually have a number?
No, there's no way we could quantify that. But if you want to say then that we can't compare it to 2020 because of that number, I'm fine with that. Then he still went. See, so basically, let's just throw 2020 out, Todd. He essentially did worse with evangelicals after overturning Roe v. Wade. If we just compare it to 2016, he did worse with evangelicals after overturning Roe v. Wade as he did before he did it. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, so no, I do. That's why I asked the question. I
appreciate you offering us a get out of jail free card, but there isn't one. And everything that I am afraid of, that we're going to have this cosmic battle about the direction of the country, and the largest culturally engaged segment of the church is just going to kind of pass. Now, listen, he gets some of the blame for this. All right, he did water down his pro-life messaging, so it's a relationship, and in any relationship, both parties have some culpability, and of course, they argue with each other about who's the more culpable. Okay, so he gets a portion of blame for this. There's no question about that. The question is how much. The church gets a portion of blame for this. There's no question about that. The question would be just, again, Aaron, about how much.
So is your theoretical concern?
But he largely won without us.
Is your theoretical concern that you both had beforehand, and I had along with you, but is it the same as it was now that you see meat on the bone? Is it less concern? Is it more concern?
No, I'm every bit as concerned as I was.
I mean, he still could not have won without us, but we were not nearly as critical to that winning coalition as we have been. It was still 1 in 5 voters, white evangelicals, and 4 out of 5 of every one of those voters went for Donald Trump. There is a silver lining here, though, that I think we should look at when it comes to evangelical turnout. At least the Russell Moores and David Frenches and Evangelicals for Harris of the world got to spend the last several months virtue signaling. Okay. So that's really cool. I'm glad for that. There's an absolute and total and really concerning void when it comes to leadership within, at least with the Pope, for every single, kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth and saying really confusing things and getting into the minutia and nuance and, pondering the lint in the navel seemingly. At least you get good statements every now and then from the undisputed leader of that church. I don't know where the leadership is
at a
national level.
That might be the darkest thing Aaron McIntyre has ever said
on
the show, and that's saying something. He just said, at least with the Pope? Wow.
I don't know where the national leadership is.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is for.
This is the Pope the Pope that Todd is praying for his death. That literally. Todd is literally praying for his death.
This is an opportunity
but go ahead, Aaron. Yes.
For organizations, new or legacy, to step up and step out again. And yeah, it is a more difficult environment than it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I was growing up, where it was more homogenous when it comes to evangelical America. There are many more sects now. It's more difficult now in this age than it was growing up because of how splintered we are even amongst ourselves. But there is a void of leadership here, and I don't know where the voices are. I don't know. On this flip side as well, we didn't actually have, and somebody pointed this out, maybe it was William Wolf over at the Center for Baptist Leaders, maybe it was him who said, we really didn't have this year a bunch of figureheads who liken themselves to evangelical leaders like the Russell Moores of the world come out and just out and out say, hey, it's okay if you don't vote for Donald Trump. It's okay to be a Christian and be a Democrat. Nancy French, I think, was one of those who was saying that the other day, but she's kind of a nothing burger. We didn't really have a huge chorus of voices like that this time around. Maybe that means they're scared and having a little bit of self-awareness. Overall, don't like this trend line, though.
Okay. Let's talk about independence. All right. Really hard. The only Republican who's ever lost independence or won independence and lost the presidency was Mitt Romney. Well, this is one of the craziest stats of the night. Exit polls are saying that Trump lost independence nationwide, but also then won them in every single swing state. Now, is that possible? Sure. Yeah, I've never seen that before. I doubt it's ever happened before, but that could also speak to the balkanization. Okay. So for example, I don't know how much time, you're spending on the Trump campaign winning over independence on any Eastern Seaboard state until you get to North Carolina, right? You're not even trying to message to those people. So it's possible that this is real. It's just unlike anything I have ever seen. In fact, there was a 20-point swing for independence for Trump in Georgia. And he won independence in every swing state and won them all. So the trend still holds up, but it was the craziest way that trend, gentlemen, has ever held up before. Any quick thought on that, or are we good? Well,
going forward, you have to mine that out further still. Then the question becomes why? What issues? Because you can dreamcast all you want about how you want to move forward theoretically, but if the issues don't speak to those independents ultimately, are you just going to be spitting in the wind?
It could just very well be, Todd. These things are so parochial now that there's only a certain amount of campaign in a certain amount of states. That's very possible. Yeah. I don't know. Or it could be what you're saying. We don't know moving forward. If this happens again in 4 years, we'll have to truly take a look at it, because that would be an interesting bifurcation. Let's go to what I think is the biggest paradigm shift of the whole evening. Okay, right here. Trump set the GOP record for Hispanic support while running on a platform of mass deportations. Now, we talked about this. How would the landscape change going into this election? Well, here we are. Trump, in fact, won Hispanic men by 10 points nationwide. 33-point swing for Trump with Hispanic men, and he won Hispanic men nationwide by 10 points. So we'll get to that more here in a second as well. But this, to me, is of things that could be lasting moving forward. The entire, again, we talked about inverted paradigms. Thoughts and prayers to the GOP consultant industry. All right, they're drinking as much wine as Ann Seltzer this morning. Okay, because that number undoes 25 years of GOP consulting, Fox News, Republican conic messaging, just flushed down the toilet here in this entire election cycle. In fact, Aaron, Let's go to the next one before we comment, because I mentioned I want to put these two together. All right. With what happened with Hispanic men, 33-point swing for Trump with Hispanic men. That we talked also, guys, on the show, man. So much of what we talked about on this show came to fruition in this election. Minority men, you saw the pushback, right? Trump got over 20% of black men as well. The Yas Queen culture pushback. All right, that what's left of masculinity in the brown and black communities have had enough. All right, the pushback has begun, and especially in the brown community, the Hispanic community, that's a massive, no bueno. Poor pun. That's a massive no bueno to the Yas Queen culture matriarchy that our colleague Jason Whitlock is always talking about, wreaking havoc in minority communities. Now, guys, your thoughts on that?
Quickly, just because we're kind of running out of time, it's the Kobe Bryant gif. More.
Amen to that.
Trust but verify. We'll see if this holds once the deportations start, because it's going to have to.
I mentioned earlier, let's go here. They still have yet to concede the race. Well, just to update Katie Pavlich there at Fox, we're going on 12 hours now. Aaron, do you have an update?
Yeah, so she is expected. I saw, let me confirm this, but she is expected to make a speech at Howard University at 4 p.m. Eastern time this afternoon. Let me double check on that, because I saw a news outlet. This is BNO. Let's see. Shelby Talcott at Semaphore is reporting, 4 p.m. this afternoon. She is expected to make a speech at Howard University. And that's according to the White House. All
right. And then, Todd, you mentioned this at the top. Let's quantify this. This is from our good friend, Tim Young. Where did 17 million voters go from the 2020 election?
Yeah.
17 million.
Homer Simpson, Bush. Gif.
17 million, guys. 17 million. That's 5 Iowas, guys. That's 5 Iowas. Where did 17 million people go?
Trialsandexecutions.com, just like your book with Daniel, Steve, and these issues are partnered together. This is why I said moving forward, it's not just about this election. Before 2028, start talking about it now. This is Todd Erzin talking. I know your head's exploded, but it's because of this issue. We got to know what the hell happened there so it never happens again.
Joe Biden is
real
just
quick,
really
to
masterful.
Follow up. Yes, to follow up on that, we mentioned this before. Election integrity bills passed overwhelmingly in Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Nevada, either requiring photo ID or banning non-citizens from voting. So, clearly the people don't trust the election, despite the fact of the media's claims. All right, there's 2 more things we've got to mention and walk you through, and then we're going to hear from you with Buy, Sell, or Hold when we come back right here on The Blaze. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can email it to us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X or Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also, if you love the podcast version. Oh, I should mention this too first. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. Please subscribe again. The new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. At Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you love the podcast version, thank you. And we would love it if you showed how much you love us by leaving a 5-star review. And thank you if you have. And then hit subscribe or follow, as the case may be. And that is going to make sure it's follow on iTunes. That will make sure that every time we do a new episode, it shows up in your feed every single time. I've got an audible I want to call here in a moment. Guys, I'll let you know about it. And I'm going to give you veto power if you think it's a bad idea. I'll give you veto power. All right, but first, a word about our friends over at Raycon. I get asked all the time still, just got another one the other day. Hey, what's the way to get Raycon? The Raycon address, let me not bury the lead. Let's start at the top. Buyraycon.com/Steve. Buyraycon.com/Steve. RAYCONN as in none. None. As in the chances Kamala Harris is going to be president of the United States? None. BuyRaycon.com/Steve. Now, why do I get asked about Raycon all the time? Because they're just frankly phenomenal. All right. Their latest model, which includes plenty of new features, makes it even more of the must-have for any audio lover. 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity so you can pair with multiple devices at once. Active noise cancellation as well. It's the best noise cancellation earbud I've ever tried, as a matter of fact. So the quality rivals some of the biggest names in premium audio, but their prices start at just half of the other guys. So if you're already in for an incredible deal, before you factor in everything up, how about 30% off plus the factor in expensive? How about another 30% off site-wide? Can't beat it, folks. Just in time for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. How about Victory Wednesday? It's a Victory Wednesday sale right now. Up to 30% off today, site-wide. 30% off when you go to buyraycon.com/Steve. buyraycon.com/Steve. All right, guys, Audible, you can veto it. All right. What do you think about after we finish up here, we just get through as many buy-seller holds as we can in the show, and we put the interview with Daniel in the overtime? Or you want to keep things as they were?
I'm good with that. Either way is fine with me.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
All right, let's do it that way. And because Daniel's got, by the way, remember, I had to tape it with him, folks, before he got on a plane. He's on a plane like right now. So I had to tape it with him first. It's kind of a crude taping. We're still digging out from last night. Barely any studios available here. So him and I literally grabbed a closet and taped it on my laptop. But he's got some really important things to say that you're going to want to hear today in the overtime at blazetv.com/Deace, blazetv.com/Deace. Go there right now. Become a subscriber for a discount. If you're not one, you'll be able to watch the overtime with our colleague and friend Daniel Horowitz there later today. Because I also think we should give you guys as much of a chance to respond to what you witnessed and went through and what you saw as much as possible too. And we'll do that with the buy, seller, hold. All right. A couple of more things that I want to make sure, though, that we mention that stuck out to me the most about what we know so far about this election. And because my entire weekend was disrupted by this, I have to bring this up, okay? Ann Seltzer's Iowa poll. People I've not even heard from in years texting me panicky. I'm getting major names in our industry and movement calling me and texting me on Sundays. Panicky. Because it came so out of nowhere. It's one of those things where you think you don't know what's going to happen, right? But you think you know how it will happen or why it would happen because you've done all the work, right? You still have, the human factor, okay? But you kind of think you know how things are going to go. And so this thing comes out of nowhere. This supposedly legendary pollster. I saw Chris LaCivita, who ran the Trump campaign with Susie Wiles, tweeting out a story claiming Ann Seltzer is America's best pollster and wished her a happy retirement. All right. I mean, my entire Sunday weekend disrupted by Ann Seltzer. I'm just trying to get a quiet weekend in with the wife before she flies back home, and I do 72 hours of barely any sleep nonstop trying to save America. And Ann Seltzer's got to come in after having too much wine on a Friday night or too much check that just cleared on a Saturday morning, if you catch my drift. With this ridiculous poll. Remember, guys, we went through the crosstabs of this poll earlier this week, that somehow Democrats are going to win women by 23 points or something. I mean, some of the stuff was just levels of high. All right. Puff, puff, pass, man. Well, and by the way, Jason Whitlock started texting me the minute the polls closed in Iowa. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I got to know if this poll is true. I'm like, Jay, it's not true. Well, it's 30% in and Kamala's ahead. I'm like, Jay, he's going to win by double digits. So, I mean, everybody was on tilt. My entire life was disrupted by this stupid, fake, corrupt poll. So, hells yeah, I'm going to take a victory lap. All right. She was only 17 points off, guys. 17 points off. To quote the great Bob Uecker from Todd Erzin's hometown Milwaukee Brewers, just a bit outside. And now here's the thing, and here's why I'm so mad about this. And I have not had time yet to do my polling reckoning that I do after every election. I will. That's next on my to-do list. I've got so many interviews this afternoon. I don't know that I'll get to it, but yes, I know some of you are going to ask me about it. I want to know too. I will do the polling reckoning that I do after every election cycle. We will do that. All right. Here's the thing about Ann. She is actually a really good pollster. That's why I said I've got a mixed record with her. She has captured trends before they happen. She didn't predict he would win, but she did capture the Rick Santorum trend before it happened in 2012 against Romney. She captured the Mike Huckabee trend in 2008. She captured the Trump trend here, him winning Iowa fairly decisively the last two elections. Now, she's had some huge misses too, but she has had a lot of big swings that turned out to be right. And there's nothing on the ground happening in Iowa that ever indicated this was a possibility at all. I mean, I'll just give you one example. One example from my home state. I mentioned this on the show last night. One of my best friends, Mike Pike. Now, if you're wondering who Mike is, all right, Mike is the guy, I've referenced Mike in the past. Mike is Mr. Human Flatulence in our poker group, all right? I mean, Mike is literally just, is just literally a walking fart, all right? But when he's not farting, he's just a man of faith, family man, small business owner, just a dude, good dude. He just farts a lot. Good dude. And it's bad, especially when he eats at poker night. That's not important now. Anyway, Mike runs for state senate against an entrenched Democrat, a leader of the Democrat Senate leadership. All right. He is outspent. I think he told me this morning it was like $400,000 to $28,000 in terms of what the two campaigns, what they both raised. Now, the Republican Party did come in when it was clear Mike could win, to their credit. They did come in and ran some great TV ads for him. But in terms of just one-to-one, because the Democrats do the same thing for their guy, in terms of one-to-one campaign spending, he was outraised, guys, 15-1, okay? And he won. He won last night. Now, it was only by 47 votes after originally being told he lost by 151 votes. But you have to understand, that should not happen if you just do math. All right, there's only two ways that happens. One, God. Two, the level of pushback and environment on the ground to the brand that you hold makes you that level of vulnerable. And if you're a Democrat in Iowa right now, you're vulnerable. Kim doesn't have Kim Reynolds doesn't have the swagger Ron DeSantis does. We'll talk about him in a minute. But she, in many respects, has done to Democrats in Iowa many of the things that Ron has done to them in Florida, made them irrelevant. So if you can do that, if you can get outspent 15-1, and you're beating a member of the Democrat state leadership head-to-head who's an incumbent in a Senate district for a race, no. Kamala Harris, the Democrat candidate for president, was never winning here. And Ann knew this. And this is why I'm so frustrated, angry, and critical of this, because I know she can do better. I know she's better than this. So this tells me she chose not to be. This tells me she just chose to sell out. This tells me resistance is futile. She's merged with the Borg. And that's, guys, why this pissed me off so much. Because I know she's a better pollster than this. She just chose not to be.
Well, and the check cleared, I'm sure, and there won't be any consequences for this. Polling is the instant replay of politics. It's the thing that everybody is absolutely certain we have to have and hasn't made anybody's life any better in aggregate.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy, actually.
And I know there's just too much money and it's what people want and blah, 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 blah. We'd all be better off if it was gone tomorrow and never came back. And I'm right about that. And the same is more and more of you are buying that about instant replay. Sure, every once in a while you'd be a little frustrated because it's your team, your call, blah, blah. You'd be fine. And I think you'd be fine. And if polling went away too, it'd be the same. And if we have a renaissance, as was talked about a lot last night between you, Steve, and Glenn, and the Blaze and the moment in terms of we're never going back to having them be the governor of the issues we talk about in debates or anything else, we're putting that in the past. If we're serious about that, polling will be part of that.
Indeed. And I've seen an effort already this morning to try to, I don't know if we want to call it retcon this poll or to save Seltzer's relevance by saying, at least she stuck to her guns, stunning and brave.
Jonah Goldberg said that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. So, in the past, when you mentioned Huckabee, you mentioned Santorum, there were things on the ground where you could kind of see, okay, I can kind of see where she's going here. If she would have released a poll that said Trump was up by 3 to 5, we might have been like, we might have scratched our heads and say, oh, that might be, oh boy, we might have been hedging just a little bit. There is nothing here that indicated Kamala was going to win by 3 points. So that goes from the era of swing and a miss to malfeasance. I mean,
yes.
If you go, I mean, if the Detroit Lions, I don't know when they're playing, or the Chiefs go out against the Broncos as 10-point favorites and they lose by 17 points, you know what I'm going to say after the game? Wow, yes, Queen, stunning and brave, Chiefs, go Chiefs. No, you don't say that. Wow, that sucked. You suck. You're a 10-point favorite and you missed. That's a swing at 27 points. What is a swing at 27 points with? No, this was malfeasance this time around. It was malfeasance. No doubt. This close to the election.
Not just
okay, if you're really a good pollster, if you are a stellar pollster in this day and age, we have enough indications now that if you're going to do a poll, when was this dated? Was this October 31st to November 2nd or something like that? It was somewhere in that date range. Yep. You have to know, with all of the early voting that's gone on, if you're a good pollster, you're going to be like, I'm not even sure if I want to publish these results or even do the poll this late in the game, because of all of the early voting, if you're really that great of a pollster.
But instead of having the resignation of the editor and the publisher of the Des Moines Register on our desk this morning, you're going to read an op-ed talking about how racism and sexism was the reason why Kamala lost. There needs to be consequences, folks. Has to be.
And the way that the entire Sunday morning news shows and national media glommed onto that poll as it was the biggest story in the country. I've got listeners from Saskatchewan to Timbuktu to your mom sending me emails this weekend. What's going on? What's going on? I mean, this thing, the media industrial complex made sure. That's how you know it was a psyop. I mean, the amount of way they leveraged a poll of Iowa with our 7-8 electoral college votes. Okay, and made it sound like this was, this was the massive swing of Kamala of momentum. The whole thing was a scam from the very beginning. And by the way, it's kind of, it's not ironic, man. This is Providence. I believe the 14 points Trump won Iowa by, if you do the math of the 2 previous years he won Iowa and combined it, it's 14 points, I believe. So there you go. One last thing, and I made sure to mention this on the show last night because I could just tell early on with the trend line that Trump was going to win, and it was going to be his night, and it needed to be. He deserved it. He earned it. It's the greatest comeback story we're maybe going to see the rest of our lives and saw previously up to this point. But I wanted to make sure at the beginning of the night last night and now at the end of our discussion here that this does not go forgotten. Because what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, and also a hat tip, there's a hearty group of conservative activists, that I got to interact with lots of them during the course of the primary and then as part of these campaigns here in the general election. So, those people, like Scott Pressler, the guy who basically lived out of a Honda in Pennsylvania the last 2 years, that guy is now, he's folk hero. Scott Pressler is like a freaking folk hero the rest of his life, okay? And there were several people like that in Florida that I met also, just doing the dirty work, the grunt work, man, when the money wasn't there and people didn't come in to help. And then ultimately, though, King frickin' Kong, all right, the Godfather, emerged into the parlor. I'll make you an offer. And I mean, Ron DeSantis, man, he put his thumb, ring finger, fist, every appendage, full weight of his political capital upon those amendments in the state of Florida and won them both, despite being massively outspent, Daniel said something like $200 million was spent in Florida promoting the weed amendment alone. Okay, is what he told me. I mean, just beat them all. Beat them all. And the dude, I think he'd make a great president. I don't know that he'll ever be president. I don't. I think with what happened this week, J.D. Vance is going to be a force of nature. If the Trump campaign, if the Trump presidency is any form of successful, it'll be very difficult to beat J.D. Vance for the nomination in 2028. All right? He's still a relatively young guy, so if he's got to wait more, he's only 46 years old, I think Ron is. Okay? So, I don't know if it'll ever happen. I think if it did, he'd be an all-time GOAT. But at the very least, if Trump is the most potent political brand we've witnessed in our generation on the right, Ron DeSantis is still the most effective governing leader the Republican Party's ever produced, guys. Ever produced. Like going back to frickin' Lincoln. Ever produced. There's been nothing like him I can think of. Nothing. And he continues to cash all of that political capital in. He doesn't ever just say, I'm good. I got my dubs. We're good. The dude just goes back to the crap. I'm all in. Just goes all in every hand, guys. Just goes in, all in every hand. Doesn't matter what his chip stack says. He just goes back to I'm all in. Just goes all in every hand. Doesn't lose. When it comes to governing and policy and winning, he's undefeated. And there was a column, I think it was the Miami Herald wrote, that said, if he wins these two amendments, he'll think he can do anything. I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time. All right. And here's the other thing, too. His approval rating is still like 56%. And he's approaching lame duck status. He's about to be term limited. He takes on every flashpoint fight, and he still has an extraordinarily high approval rating in that state. And Todd, you mentioned it earlier, one of the subtle badass things is when he went out there on X and himself and declared Trump the winner of Florida before the networks did. Yes. All right. I mean, it was just, we may never see another powerful brand and personality as potent as Trump's on the right ever again. I don't know that we'll ever see someone that has conducted the political science class that has been the state of Florida over the last 6 years, the way that Ron DeSantis has. And last night, again, one of his absolute finest moments. And I just wanted to make sure my man got his flowers because him and his team, they're well-deserved.
Yes.
I just don't know how you can sit here this morning. If you are an American of any stripe who still stands for and believes, wears the jersey of the good, the true, and the beautiful, I don't know how you can sit here, stand here, ride there, walk there, and not have some level of optimism within you. We've got a lot of problems. We've got a lot of work to do. But there is still a fire in the belly of real America. There still is. Okay, I don't know how many in this audience wrote in somebody else, didn't vote for Donald Trump. I don't know how even of those group cannot be somewhat optimistic. Because we have two figures here. Ron DeSantis has shown us what you can do, what you can accomplish with just unvarnished, unabashed, unapologetic leadership in a state like Florida. He showed us what you can accomplish. Donald Trump has showed us what you can overcome against pretty much all the odds stacked against you, all the headwinds against you in terms of everything that I detailed at the top of the show. Donald Trump has shown you what you can overcome. Ron DeSantis has shown you what you can do. How can you not be optimistic, at least on some level this morning?
Considering Donald Trump has admitted he didn't get policy right in the past, he has to do better with that, and he has to operate quickly. We don't have much time. Listen, Trump is, as I said, this isn't a red wave, it's a Trump wave. He is the New York Yankees. That is undeniable. But what's also undeniable is the best free agent in the game is Ron DeSantis. And you got to get him on the team if you believe in the best personnel and doing it very quickly. SecDef, Homeland Security, I don't know. But one of the most disappointing things about last night is I suggested that and I got pushed back on both sides. From the Trump side, no way, we don't want boots and meatball and blah, blah, blah. And from the DeSantis side, no way, he's my governor. We got to set him up for 2028. For him to be set up for 2028, you have to be wishing for Trump to fail. I hope you're not wishing that. And if it's a success, I quite frankly, as successful as DeSantis has been, if he turns down Trump in this moment of need, that's going to be a bad look. He would have to say yes to one of these positions, and he'd be good at it. I hope that both men are prepared to do that, because I think it only helps both of them. And DeSantis's best positioning for having a chance as being president sooner rather than later is to join this team of rivals and get the job done.
Let's just do this. We'll just stop with a yes or no. In fact, let's start buy, sell, or hold with this. Okay? And you guys just no explanation, just buy, sell, or hold. So we're going to start buy, sell, or hold with this, Aaron. So get ready for the listeners. I'm going to give the first proposition.
Okay.
All right, here on buy, sell, or hold. And no hold penalties today. No Lindsey Graham jokes. I'm in too good of a mood. None of that stuff. We're good. All right. Buy, sell, or hold. Vance DeSantis ticket 28, and you don't care which order the names appear.
Buy.
All right.
Sight unseen.
Aaron, you're up. Buy, sell, or hold. What do we got?
All right, let me find the slides here. We have a few entries that we'll get to, and we will begin with the computer acting very slowly. Clinton Shaw says the Christmas music played yesterday was a prophetic message and a foreshadowing of election night. We should now blast Christmas music during every intermission starting on Monday.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, buy. Absolutely.
So I'm open.
This is, as Paul would say, St. Paul would say, this is a trusty saying. Bye. Yes.
Sal, I'm open to the first part in terms of providential timing, but then, let it
marinate.
Let it be. Do not ruin it. So I got to sell.
Luke Taylor says Trump needs to hang out underground in a bunker for the next 10 weeks until the inauguration.
Well, Sal,
that's not a terrible idea,
I
and I will buy
understand why
that.
you're saying it. I understand why you're saying it, but
yep. I think our friend Stephen Friend, FBI whistleblower, would he suggest that if he wins, he turns Mar-a-Lago and basically into a compound until the election, right? And just stay there and do all of his transition stuff, do everything there and stay there. I agree. Yes, I agree with the sentiment of this. I will buy. Yeah, they're going to try to kill him, guys. They already have.
Next up, we go to The Forester, who says RFK Jr. has the opportunity to make the biggest impact in Washington, D.C. of the incoming Trump administration, which is why he needs to triple his personal security. What does it say? We've got a lot of submissions like the last two. What does that say about things? It
says that we're sitting here 12 hours after Trump won and the other party hasn't conceded or contacted him yet. That's what it says. It says we're in a cold civil war. That's what it says. I'll buy this 100%. Unless someone like a DeSantis is Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, and then I think it is, or even our Attorney General. I wouldn't recommend that, but if he takes it, he could have that. Though, if he gets that kind of a position, I would maybe hedge. But here, let me say one quick, and I'll give it to you. The Maha people are for Trump what evangelicals were in 2016. The close alignment that put him over the top. Okay, that didn't make any sense at first. Why would evangelicals go with the guy with the porn star fetish and twice divorced? And in this case, so why do the Maha people want to go with the author of the jab? It's the same thing. The Maha people for Trump 24 are what evangelicals were in 2016. The weird coalition partner, but put him over the top. And Trump delivered for evangelicals. He honored his part of the deal. His part of art of the deal. He gave the evangelicals, us, what we wanted. And we overturned Roe. And then we took the positions of prominence and influence he gave us and we urinated away and we did not capitalize on it. And now we're the least relevant. We're not irrelevant, Aaron's right, but we're the least relevant we've been in at least a decade right now. I would urge the Maha people, the RFK Juniors and that crowd, you are now where we were as evangelicals when Trump won the first time and shocked the system. You are the missing link ingredient that put him over the top. He is going to deliver. All right. He will give much of what he told you he will. He's an art of the deal guy. He will give. He will pay he'll pay that debt. Learn from us. Don't blow your wad. Take advantage of the moment now and deliver the goods. All right? Don't grift. Don't get, wobbly in the knees, George, as Margaret Thatcher once said to George Herbert Walker Bush. All right. Take advantage of this moment that Trump's about to give you now and make something of it, unlike what evangelicals did when we went Esau with the birthright that Trump gave us.
You are right about all of that. Here's how you take some of the... You put pressure on in the right way, but take it off in the wrong way by hopefully making there's just too many people to kill. Like every department, Steve, you didn't even mention Treasury or State. You got to make every department has an opportunity of being transformed. I mean, State, you've got Ukraine going on. Treasury, you have inflation. So you put Cruz as Attorney General. You put SecDef as DeSantis. Tulsi may very well be State. Treasury may be Vivek. Who knows? But this team of rivals needs to happen because it simultaneously raises the bar for everybody and also protects everybody so they don't just have one person with a big target on their back.
Amen to that. And, I said Donald Trump is a legend, but his legacy largely is going to rise or fall based on what Steve just said. Yeah. What do you want his legacy to be? He's done just about everything that he can do. He really has. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, this is coming from me. Have I been critical of Donald Trump? Yes, I have. But basically, he has done everything almost everything now that you could reasonably expect, given the circumstances surrounding him, given what he's gone through. He's done just about everything. We'll see how he staffs, but his legacy, his lasting legacy, is really not up to him. It's up to what people do with the power that he vests within them. I think that's maybe one of the most important things we can say today, if I may say so myself. Next.
That's well said.
We go to Nate, who says, Ted Cruz will be Senate Majority Leader if we can get Trump to push for it.
If the last part is true, true, I'll buy. I don't think Trump will push for that, but yes. And can I also say, too, I mentioned this earlier, now's the time since he went there. The number one priority is not policy, it's personnel. They're going to try to have a Senate Majority Leader vote here this week, if they can, by voice vote. Trump needs to take his considerable political capital and make sure the Senate Majority Leader is someone that will not obstruct his agenda and his mandate.
Absolutely.
John Cornyn, John Thune, those guys will. All right. Someone, they are Mitch McConnell trained and acolytes. He needs to make sure that there is somebody there, whether it's someone that will do it out of ambition, like a Rick Scott, someone that will do it out of ideological fealty, like an aforementioned Ted Cruz. But there needs to be someone there in that position now that will not obstruct that agenda. That is Donald Trump's first priority, in my view. That right there has to happen.
Indeed.
All right, we'll come back. More buy, sell, or hold here in a moment. So, folks, we decided here with our partners over at Hillsdale College to extend the free offer for U.S. constitutions after the election. Remember, we were giving away 1 million of these around the country as voter guides, the ultimate voter guide, the U.S. Constitution, heading into the election. And it's still very clear, despite a resounding victory, that there's still a lot of people that need to read that thing. Right? So there's, of course, they want us to be conciliatory and be unifying. We agree here on the show. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna extend the sale just for y'all. You guys, you need some loving here, and you need to know the Constitution because you're clearly voting wrong. All right. So if you've got someone in your life, in fact, I've got it right here for you. Thanksgiving's coming up. You know, Aunt Petunia's coming locked and loaded. She's memorized all the lower thirds and chirons on MSNBC all year long. You know this. She's ready, and you're like, all right, how am I going to not let her get away with ruining Thanksgiving this year? Here's what you're going to do. The minute Aunt Petunia starts to open her mouth and Frosted Tip Joy Reid comes out, okay? You're just going to grab your pocket Constitution, slam it down like Doughboy and Boys in the Hood. Dominoes! That's what you're going to do right there. All right? DeaceForHillsdale.com. Just leave out the last word. It's not nice. DeaceForHillsdale.com. Get your free pocket constitution at DeaceForHillsdale.com. FOR, DeaceForHillsdale.com. And these are the things I come up with, guys, on 4.5 hours of sleep after 26 consecutive hours of work. So it's not my best material, but we're going to roll with it. DeaceForHillsdale.com. FOR. All right, guys, back to buy, sell, or hold. Let's rock.
All right, we'll continue on with they all knew who said at least 3 blue cities will be on fire by tonight.
Oh, my gosh.
Do you think it was so decisive we're not going to have any coordinated riots?
No.
I think there's going to be
sporadic
violence, but...
I'm expecting violence, but by tonight... I'll sell on that front. I do think they're a little disoriented right now.
Here's what I think. Why are they so quiet? What are they? They're doing something over there. They're having some conversations. They're doing something. Okay. So there were no rioting, no statements. They're not talking in the media. No leaks.
Is PBS calling you, wanting to get a retrospective on how did this happen?
No.
How did we miss this? You're not getting any of that this morning. There's no introspection whatsoever. It's pedal to the metal. America's sexist, racist, misogynist. It is. They are goggling down on this. Yes.
I think they're plotting. And they've got about a 70-some-odd day window between here and the inauguration. Goes back to the previous one. It's why I agree. If I'm Trump, man, I don't leave Mar-a-Lago until Inauguration Day. And it's just a moat, an alligator-infested moat with cannons surrounding me. I think they're plotting. I hate saying stuff like this. I never said stuff like this when I got into this business in a million years. But here we are, okay? And I think they're plotting. That's what I think. That's why I think it's so quiet over there. And I think whatever she says at 4 o'clock Eastern that's the first step in what their response to all of this will be. And it will be coordinated, and I wouldn't write anything off.
51% over under. Kamala out and out concedes at 4 p.m.
Under. Something benign like the American people have spoken. We must, accept something, but like the traditional formal concession, some generic benign statement that I think you'll get. That's the closest you'll get. It'll be unlike any previous concession speech you've ever heard. But let's be fair. I think we also agree, and I think we said this, that if Trump had lost, we wouldn't have gotten, I think he'd have spoken by now, obviously, but I don't think he would have gotten, we have to unite the country now either. It's where we are now, guys. These worldviews cannot be reconciled. They can't be. They cannot share a culture, guys. They cannot share a landmass. Okay? They cannot. And it's not possible for one group of people to say that either our rights come from God, or I just have rights because I'm a human being, or I have rights you can't take away. And the other side says you have the rights we say you have and government says you have. That's not a sustainable relationship, guys. It can't work.
Yeah, as big a loser as the turn toward Kamala has been for them, they're going to use her last night for at least one more thing, and that's for whatever the talking point is going to be going forward. Pay attention to what that is. Steve's right. It's not going to be a concession speech. This is going to a movement setter. They're going to use her up completely before they throw her overboard.
Okay, we go now to USMC Mom 2016, who says the brothers be flipping snark was a regrettable thing.
No, I'll buy. I'll sell. Because at the time we were being sold it, we are sold this every single time. And it's just a different non-white face at outlets like Fox News that sell it to us every single time. Every single time. Now, if Joe Biden were not senile, this would not have happened. It would not have happened. Would open and all that talk was happening before Joe Biden was ever senile. So no, I will. That's I think she means the fact we were mocking it at the time. Is that what that's referencing? I assume, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't regret it at all. I don't. No.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. It's nice to see some movement in a direction that we can celebrate and appreciate. But my analysis of this is the same thing as the Catholic vote. It's good that it was in the direction of team victory, but it's not a signal of some grand Catholic renaissance. And this isn't a great sign. Maybe it's a beginning, but they would absolutely be in trust, but verify for a long time in a lot of different ways. But the numbers didn't move significantly enough to say that you have some grand racial renaissance going on. You just can't do that objectively speaking.
Let's see. I'm seeing multiple accounts now reporting just within the last couple of minutes that Kamala, some are crediting Washington Post, some are crediting Associated Press, saying that Kamala has called Trump to concede. I don't know.
There we go.
Well, calling
13 hours later.
Calling him in the speech that happens tonight publicly are two entirely different things.
Now, Jackie Heinrich at Fox News is saying the same thing I just saw. So,
what did she say? Congratulations, Mr. Fascist? I mean, what did she?
Jackie Heinrich, this is the tweet. Jackie Heinrich is host and anchor at Fox News. Vice President Kamala Harris called President-elect Trump to congratulate him on winning the 2024 presidential election. A campaign aide tells Fox, quote, she discussed the importance of a peaceful transfer of power and being a president for all Americans, end quote. The vice president will deliver remarks at Howard University later today.
Steve, your point, no one should read what you just said as a joke. You're making like one of the most important points you've made today about like, you don't just call and have a peaceful transfer of power to Hitler.
Yeah. It's
a
farce. The whole thing is a farce. Is he Hitler or not?
Let's say this. Based on that, I might amend what I said before about what the speech will be today. I might amend that knowing what we know now. So we're left with, that leaves you with two options, okay? Which is they literally believe we are literal fascists, or these people are so craven for power, there is no thing they won't say or do so shameless and reckless, not even contemplating what the ramifications of them doing it will be, because the collateral damage is nothing compared to the thought that they won't have power. Either way, I can't share a country with that.
Correct.
You're basically saying I have to be married to someone who I know is cheating on me and is doing it in my face, or is telling me they're cheating on me and does it in order to taunt me as my wife and emasculate me that she prefers other men when she's not really cheating on me, but she hates me so much that she just says that to me anyway because she likes the pain it causes me. Do you see does that analogy fit maybe what I'm trying to say? How would that marriage survive?
Exactly.
You're being emasculated and gutted as a man either way. How would that survive? So your wife is either treating you like the cuck loser you are, all right, or she's claiming you're one just because she hates you that much. How in the world would you stay married, guys, in those conditions? That's basically what this is now, okay? They either really think we're fascists and Nazis, or the desire to rule us and defeat us is so craven that they'll just say it no matter what venom it causes and collateral damage it causes and crazy gunmen to shoot at our candidates it causes, because the collateral damage to them is not as threatening as not having the power over us is. Either way, that's not good, period.
I'd actually respect her more tonight if she comes out and calls me Hitler one more time. Because if she actually says, yeah, we need to move on and we need to come together and a peaceful transfer of power, you're going to do that to Hitler? No.
That sounds like maybe I just came up with my post-election Blaze column. Peaceful, what do you think, guys? Peaceful transfer of power, Todd. Hitler. It's peaceful transfer of power time for Hitler in D.C.
Mel Brooks
that could be a column, perhaps.
Mel Brooks is still alive. I'm going to farm it out to him.
Yes.
I so prefer having these conversations than the other ones that we could have been having today.
Oh, like which track on the train should we take?
Yeah.
Which camp are we going to? And which platform are we being censored from?
It's clear the media this morning, which has we haven't even talked about. Well, we'll talk about it a little bit later. In it's clear the media thinks that we're literally Hitler. Apparently, Kamala doesn't, though. So. Let's go.
Before we move on, a word about just 1 second. I got to make sure we promote our friends over at Preborn, because I know there are still a lot of disappointed pro-lifers out there with the results we saw around the country. Missouri was unable to beat a kill 'em all amendment. And who do you trust? You're looking for organizations to donate to that are actually effective. Let's give you one right here. And that's our friends over at Preborn, and it's why we align with them here at The Blaze. We've helped them save thousands, tens of thousands of babies because of your generosity and the effectiveness and the witness of their ministry. And if you want to make that tax-deductible donation today, they confront moms with the ultrasound so they know, their conscience now knows that is another person that they are a steward of. And then when mom chooses life, they are there to care and love on that mom and her baby as well. Everything you can imagine, from diapers to formula to counseling, all of that is free. The ultrasounds are free, but they're not actually free. They're just free to the mom and her baby. They're free because of the generosity of us. And if we want to keep that going and keep these great stories that Preborn has been a part of making happen, this is now our opportunity. Go to preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve and make a tax-deductible donation today.
All right, we go to somewhere in Kentucky who says the best election coverage of the night on Blaze TV happened at 2 a.m. when Daniel and Steve appeared together and weren't filled with woe and lamentation. I have to say, that is correct. You both were glowing.
And it took it, well, does that just happen because it's 2 a.m. or was
maybe
what was happening good? No, I agree. It was. This was a much more fun night than 2020 was, and 2022 was. I'll say that for sure.
Amen. Bye.
Next is Auburn Tiger 89 picking J.D. Vance was the best decision of Trump's campaign.
It's at least, if it wasn't the best, it's in the top tier, so I will buy.
Sure, buy.
Next we go to Bill, who has this GIF of Talladega Nights. And
oh, nice.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands. Bill says a lot of people are feeling like this morning. Buy, sell, or hold.
Oh, buy. I love that movie, man.
Absolutely.
I love it. Buy. Yes. I'll buy.
Carmen Abernathy says, in the run-up to this 2024 election, Twitter X actually was real life.
Correct. And I think I said this on our coverage last night. I'll say it again. Elon Musk is the Johannes Gutenberg of the 21st century.
He's the most consequential private sector American in modern U.S. history.
Just like there would be no Luther without Gutenberg, there would be no Trump 2.0. There's no way he wins without Musk. No way. I mean, Musk purchased the largest aggregator of political content and thought and speech on earth and made it the freest large platform on earth. And there's no way Trump wins without that. No way. And Trump knows that. Okay. And that's why he is, Musk, he even had Musk at Mar-a-Lago last night. All right. So, I mean, that doesn't happen without Elon Musk. Absolutely. Yeah. Say a prayer of thanks for him, whatever his motivations are.
He's the real Tony Stark, and X is the Iron Man suit, for sure.
That's a great analogy.
Oh, great analogy, too. You bet. Yeah.
Dr. Griffin says Tucker Carlson will have a significant formal role in the new administration.
I'll sell because of the word formal. He will have a significant role. It won't be formal. Knowing what I know of him, he'll want what he has right now. He'll want his independence as a platform, but he will be adhered to and listen quite a bit. And I'll go back 2 submissions ago. Without Don Jr. and Tucker Carlson, J.D. Vance on the ticket never happens. So if we just remove the word formal, meaning like a title, okay, then I will buy.
I'll say he's going to be formal, at least in the transitional phase and getting this thing up off the ground. To that extent, I think it'll be formal, yeah.
All right, super rapid fire. Germs92 says this election was what we were hoping for in 2022.
Correct. This ended up being the normie election that we were looking for in 2022, in my view. I'll buy.
So I think it's different from that in significant ways. I mean, it's positive. I'm optimistic. It's good, but it's a Trump wave. It's not a red wave.
Alexander the Least says the similarity between 2016 and 2024 electoral college maps is the latest evidence proving 2020 win was fixed thanks to COVID policies.
Bye.
100%. That's one of many pieces of evidence, not to mention 17 million voters just like Kaiser Sose, poof, they're gone. 17 million, guys. We only have like 5 states in America with that many people. 17 million voters just disappeared.
Andrew Hawcroft says the apparent success of Amendment 3 in Missouri is a sobering reminder that states need to set a higher bar for passing constitutional amendments. In Missouri, I think it's 50. Places like Florida, it's 60.
I will sell and say it's a sobering reminder of where we are with pro-life leadership in the church and gutless Republican governors.
Correct.
I'll say that.
Correct.
Mini Bomber says Ann Seltzer's Iowa prediction was a shameless debasing act to the spirit of the age in order to pad her resume for a future job at a legacy news outlet.
Bye.
Or cash a check.
Yeah.
Bye. All right, we'll do one more after we talk about our friends at Patriot Mobile, because we are looking for people that we can support, and they also support us. I've done 3 conferences this year: Dallas, my hometown of Des Moines, and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And Patriot Mobile was there to present and sponsor at all 3 of them. And they have a fantastic U.S.-based customer service team. It's the mobile phone service that me and my family use. We love it. You can make the switch today. Keep your number, switch your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone. Whatever you want to do, you'll get started with a free month of service. If you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve, you'll get started with a free month of service today. Patriotmobile.com/Steve is where you want to go. Again, use the offer code Steve to get started with a free month of service with their outstanding network that you can switch within their network anytime you want. patriotmobile.com/Steve.
Really quick, I got to get this one in. Alejandro Smith says Nate Silver will say, "See, I told you it was 50-50.
I see. Yeah, because it was going to be one or the other. Yes. Well said. All right, great show, guys. We're going to stick around and do overtime for subscribers. For the rest of you, see you tomorrow. Until then, Romans 8:28.